Hi, good evening. This is John Hawkins Jr. with Gateway Counseling Center. This is our Tuesday night Facebook Live. We do every Tuesday night at 7:15, where we answer all your questions that come in to me throughout the week at jonh@gatewaycounseling.com. And any questions you have while I'm doing the live here, I'll be more than happy to answer for you. We are a counseling center here in Boynton Beach, Florida, right on Gateway Boulevard, hence the name Gateway Counseling Center. And we do individual counseling, couples therapy, family therapy for every mental health issue, relational, emotional issues. I do a lot of performance work with the golfers, entrepreneurs, other athletes, business owners, things like that. I'm also a trauma specialist, specializing in working with PTSD, anxiety disorders, depression, couples therapy, and all types of addictions. And like I said, you can do questions live, or throughout the week I'll answer your questions as they come in, or hold them for Tuesday night if you want. You can also touch base with us on the Mind Zone group and reach us on Gateway Center on Instagram, and then our Gateway Counseling Center on Facebook here or on YouTube. You can also watch the playbacks of the Tuesday Night Lives on our website, on YouTube, on Facebook page as well. Tonight, I wanted to talk to you about a little known phenomenon that I've seen more and more over the last, 4 or 5 years, and that's work-related post-traumatic stress. And I know for some people they may feel like that's an exaggeration, or like, okay, you got traumatized at work. And I would tell you, as a trauma specialist, somebody who has worked with thousands of clients, from veterans to clients who were sexually abused in childhood, physically, emotional abuse, domestic violence, first responders. When people hear post-traumatic stress or PTSD, they think of things like soldiers or firemen or cops. And I would tell you, this is the small percentage of people with PTSD. The majority of people that have post-traumatic stress or forms of post-traumatic stress are just regular people like us who don't even know they have it. They come to see somebody like me or their doctor, and they keep getting diagnosed by their individual symptoms. So get diagnosed with types of depression, generalized anxiety, they call it, which is really always a form of some type of traumatic stress, and panic attacks, things like that. So if you think in terms of like a scale of 1 to 10, so you've got, like, let's say severe PTSD over here, and let's say you need a 7 to get diagnosed with PTSD. So many people have what's called sub-threshold, or like below the 7 levels of it. And so they never really get the proper diagnosis of what it is that they're really suffering from. And so they keep getting their symptoms treated, but they don't realize they have types of traumatic stress. So I've worked with people coming out of different, toxic, abusive work environments, and I'll explain some of the variables in a minute of why they're so traumatizing to people. Typically, I'll also find some like early life vulnerabilities, like issues from the family of origin, or neglectful, abusive parents, different ways kids had to adapt, different stuff. But if you look at middle school stuff, and again, I do a whole episode on that someday, of like so many adults that come in that are really triggered with all kinds of anxiety and panic and things like that from someone make a comment to them that triggers all these middle school memories. So in middle school and high school bullying has a lot of parallels with workplace bullying, or having an abusive owner, supervisor, things like that. And it's the same components of why they end up becoming so traumatizing. So in workplace PTSD, or even those sub-thresholds, maybe it's not full-blown PTSD, but it's enough to cause a person a lot of distress and anxiety, or I've had clients that are debilitated after spending several years in an environment like that. They can't even work again. With just the thought of it, just puts them into a collapse state or severe panic. So if I go into this environment every day and I've got this like punitive, harsh, shaming supervisor or owner, okay, there's a lot of associated stuff for me because I need this job financially. And there's a lot of things that are associated with money, like freedom, self-worth, security. So let's say I go in there and I'm getting just shamed and emotionally abused by this person, but I don't feel like I can quit because I've got all these financial obligations and fears of, not having the ability to support myself, or living under a bridge, or what my kids won't be able to eat, and all this kind of stuff. So then I have to just take it. So there's this element of like helplessness and powerlessness, which is a big component in trauma. So it puts people like in freeze states, and then what will happen also times is, you know, it'll escalate things like drinking, substance use, medications, pornography, food, all these kind of things, because it's like, all right, I've got all this churned up anxiety and emotion, but I got to go back to work the next day. So then I'm, you know, medicated with these other compulsive behaviors. Even if I don't get shamed the next day or get bullied in front of the rest of my colleagues, there's the fear that I could. So it really becomes like a lot of like emotional parallels to like being in a POW camp. You know, like I've got to go through this day in and day out, day after day. I spend a majority of my time here. And there's all this fear. There's either like the hatred or rage or bitterness that develops towards, you know, somebody who's abusing me. But then there's a lot of shame towards self that develops a lot of times, because then people are like, you know, why don't I stand up for myself? Or why don't I? And here's where some of the other, you know, previous life experiences come into play. Where, let's say, if I had to go into kind of a helpless freeze state to survive an abusive parent, it's easy to get triggered into that as an adult, where I just kind of take it. Or if I have these, you know, fears around money and finances that, you know, connect to feeling trapped, or I'll end up feeling isolated, I won't be able to do anything or have any choices, and I'll feel not good enough. And then it seems like the lesser of two evils just to take it. But then when you just keep taking it over and over again, you know, then you start to develop this chronic hypervigilance, which is one of the hallmarks of PTSD. So, you know, then you get intrusive thoughts, memories, dreams, all these kind of things, and you start to do things to avoid. Like, let's say I'm sneaking around trying to avoid that supervisor, or I use drugs and alcohol or food or whatever to suppress what I'm feeling because I feel trapped and powerless. So, and again, if this stacks on top of already, you know, conditions you were walking around in, what I'll find is a lot of times my client had some of, you know, these wounds from early childhood, but they weren't in the context yet that like really manifested them or blew them up. And then they'll get in this workplace that's abusive, and then it'll just wear you down. And so, you know, another factor is all that shaming. Then people lose confidence in their abilities, their self. So let's say they go to get another job, or they quit, or they get fired, and now not only is there anxiety about getting back in another abusive situation, but now I've lost confidence in myself. So I go to an interview, I'm kind of sheepish, passive, I'm like, I feel inadequate, I'm nervous, and then now I put out all that energy, and then my chances of getting hired are much lower and diminished, because I don't have that confidence, and I'm not bringing in, you know, my best and my ability to think rapidly and answer questions and all this kind of stuff. So then it, you know, it just kind of keeps adding on and on to the consequences and the outcomes. But I would tell you, this is a real legit thing. You know, don't make light of friends or family members who say they've been traumatized at work, because there are some really nasty supervisors, owners, employers out there. And like I said, the component of powerlessness and helplessness is always going to be associated with some level of kind of traumatic stress that develops. And just because it's not an 8, 9, or 10 doesn't mean it's not significant. And, you know, if you get into a couple repetitive things like that, and then let's say you're experiencing that at home as well to some degree, and there's not anywhere to reach for to get emotional support from what you're going through, you know, then it's just like double jeopardy. And, you know, the person doesn't often really understand that you've been traumatized to that degree, or would never, you know, associate it with post-traumatic stress. They would just think I'm weak, or that, you know, whatever it is, and like I said, shame themselves. And so it's a real significant problem that I've been seeing more and more and more over the last few years. And so it's been, you know, quick to spot it, because you know, like people come in and they've got these symptoms, and they start talking about their job, and they, like I said, probably 9 out of 10 people do not connect the dots of like what's causing their symptoms, or realize the severity of how much it's traumatized them. So that is something I would really appreciate if you guys found that helpful. This information I gave you tonight, it's kind of a silent epidemic in the workplace, and you know, I would really appreciate if you could forward that to anybody you feel like is going through this now, or it's happened to them. Our mission here is to help as many people as possible. That's why we do this Tuesday Night Live at 7:15. and the clients we see here, anything, following us on all the social media platforms. We just want to keep getting information out there, encouragement, support, to help people heal and help people achieve the best they can. You can follow me also on the Key podcast. It's masterthekey.com, and I do a weekly podcast with my partner Paul Adams, and we're really dedicated on that. Getting into some of this stuff, but that forum is really about helping people learn how to achieve their best and their maximum potential. So it's not just healing from trauma and painful things, but how can I live the fullest life possible and achieve the most I'm capable of achieving, which includes fulfillment as well, not just achievement, but doing that while being fulfilled. So meet us here next Tuesday night at 7:15. Like I said, you can contact me during the week at jonh@gatewaycounseling.com if you have questions. You can also hit us up on all the social media platforms I mentioned. Gateway Center on Instagram, Gateway Counseling Center on Facebook, and then also Gateway Counseling Center on YouTube. And I will see you guys next week at 7:15. Invite anybody who you think could benefit, and I always enjoy answering all your questions. And you guys have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday night.